The university handbook was unyielding. Professors and students were forbidden from marrying. The policy etched in bold print as though to remind everyone that power and intimacy should never intervene. And yet, you had done the unthinkable behind closed doors, away from the eyes of academy. You were Jungkook's wife. But within the university walls, he was Professor June, cold, collected, and untouchable. His eyes calmed over you in lectures as though you were invisible, no glimmer of recognition, no warmth. If anything, he treated you with an almost deliberate indifference, harsher with you than with others, as if distance was the only shield he had. And so you carried your longing home. At the end of every day, when the facade dissolved, you clung to him, perhaps too much, perhaps with a desperation that only deepened the gap between you. At the university, he was Professor Jones, sharp eyed, stern, and untouchable. He called you by your last name in front of everyone, his tone as clipped and professional as it was with any other student. But the moment the door to your apartment closed, the mask shifted. He was still composed, still careful, but you could see the difference. He was your husband. One evening, you carried two steaming bowls of stew to the table, humming softly as you set them down. Dinner is ready. Don't tell me you are going to bury yourself in papers instead. He slipped off his glasses and stacked his graded sheets neatly, standing without protest. I wouldn't dare, not after seeing how much effort you put in. You smiled at his words, your heart softening. As he sat, you leaned forward eagerly. So, tell me honestly, is it better than last time? He took a spoonful, chewed thoughtfully, then looked at you with that quiet seriousness he always carried. It's good you have improved. Your pout turned into a grin. Just good, not amazing. Not my wife is the best cook in the world. A faint curve touched his lips, his variant of a smile. Don't fish for compliments, eat before it gets cold. Later that night, while he worked through another stack of research papers on the couch, you sprawled beside him, resting your head on his shoulder. You work too much, you'll get wrinkles before your time. He glanced down at you, shifting slightly so you fit more comfortably against him. And you don't study enough. If I'm going to get wrinkles, it will be because of you. You giggled, nudging him playfully. See, you do think about me, even when you are busy. His hand, large and warm, absent-mindedly adjusted the blanket over your legs. He didn't answer your teasing directly, but his actions did. That was Jungkook, never extravagant with words, but always steady, always present. And though you still clung to him with childish affection, he never pushed you away. He allowed it, your warmth softening his edges, your presence filling the silence he once left so comfortably in. The day had been long, unbearable even at the university. Jungkook had barely looked at you, not a word, not a glance, just the same professional distance he used to shield you both from suspicion. By the time you returned home, the ache of being invisible lingered like a bruise. You found him exactly where you expected, seated at the dining table, sleeves rolled up, red pen in hand, eyes scanning it and the stack of papers. The sight alone was enough to unravel the restraint you had been holding all day. You have been buried in those papers since morning. Don't you ever get tired? Work doesn't finish itself. Something in his tone, calm, detached, indifferent, ignited the fire in your chest. You walked over, snatching the pen from his hand. And what about me, Jungkook? Do I matter less than those papers, less than your lectures? Because lately that's exactly how it feels. His eyes finally lifted, sharp and dark, his jaw tightening. Don't start this, why not tonight? But your frustration had festered too long. Start what? Asking for my husband's attention from him to look at me like I exist. God, Jungkook, you're so heartless. You only ever think about yourself, your exhaustion, your work. What about me? His chair scraped back as he stood, towering over you now, his restraint cracking. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't get exhausted coming home to complaints after working all day? You call me selfish, but you are the one who clings, who demands, who never understands. You're childish wine. Your throat burn, tears well, and despite your effort to hold them back. Childish for wanting my husband to notice me, for wanting to feel loved in a marriage I gave up everything for. Maybe you are right, Jungkook. Maybe I was childish to believe you could never give me more than this cold silence. He took a step closer, anger flashing in his eyes. The words slipped before he could swallow them back. You're useless, wine, useless and selfish. The room fell deadly quiet. His words cut through the air, sharper than any knife. You stared at him, stunned, the weight of his anger sinking into your chest like stone, tears spilled down your cheeks, hot and unstoppable. If that's truly what you want, think of me, then maybe you never should have married me. You turn your steps unsteady and stormed into the bedroom. Slamming the door behind you, the sound echoed through the apartment, leaving him standing alone in the suffocating silence. Both of you were wounded, both of you too prideful to step back, and for the first time, the fragile line holding your secret managed to gather. To tend to break completely, the apartment no longer felt like a home. The echoes of your fight lingered in every corner, his words replaying in your mind, your tears still staining the pillow you had buried your face in that night. From the very next morning, you changed. You stopped hovering near him, stopped offering him tea, stopped slipping your hand into his when he sat too close. At breakfast, you sat in silence, eating quickly before retreating to your room. You moved around him like he was a stranger renting the same space. At home, you ignored his presence completely. If he spoke, you answered with curt, clipped words, your eyes fixed anywhere but know him. The evenings passed with him at the dining table and you in your room. The door shut tight between you. The warmth you once brought into the apartment was replaced by a cold, suffocating stillness. And yet, in the quiet, you could feel his gaze sometimes lingering on you. When you walked past, heavy and unreadable, at the university, the change was just as sharp. During his lectures, you kept your eyes on your notebook, never lifting your hand to answer a question, even when you knew the answer better than anyone else. When his gaze swept across the classroom, he looked away deliberately as though he were nothing more than another professor. Your classmates noticed, some whispered that you had fallen out of favor with him. Others snickered that perhaps you had finally realized how intimidating Professor June could be. None of them knew the truth that you were his wife, and the silence between you was just not academic, but deeply personal. Jungkook noticed every detail, the way your chair scraped back before everyone else when class ended, the way your footsteps no longer slowed when passing his desk. The way your eyes avoided his like it burned to look at him. But pride was a cruel thing. He never called you out, not at home, not at a university. Instead, he let the silence stretch, pretending it didn't matter, pretending he didn't care. Even as the distance grew unbearable, he sat there behind his fortress of pride, watching you slip further and further away. The silence between you had stretched for days. Heavy and unyielding, the apartment was no longer filled with bickering or laughter, only the sound of rustling papers, running water, and the occasional clink of dishes. That night, you emerged from your room to find Jungkook still at the dining table, hunched over a mountain of exam scripts. The clock ticked past midnight, but his pen scratched tirelessly. His shirt clung to his back with sweat, strands of hair damp against his forehead. At first, you thought nothing of it, just another night of him overworking himself, but when his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his glass of water, you frowned. You should take a break. I'll finish this set and rest. His voice was hoarse, weaker than usual. You folded your arms, watching him for another long moment before turning away. The pride in your chest still ached, reminding you of the cruel words he had thrown at you days ago, useless, selfish. But then a low cough rattled from his chest, followed by a sharp exhale. His hand slipped, the pen clattering onto the papers. When you turned back, he was leaning heavily against the table, his skin pale and his breath uneven. Jungkook, he rushed forward just as he tried to stand, only for his knees to buckle. He collapsed onto the couch, one hand pressed against his temple. It's nothing, just tired. You knelt beside him, pressing the back of your hand to his forehead. Your eyes widened at the scorching heat radiating from his skin. Nothing, you were burning up, Jungkook. You have been sick all this time and still sitting here acting like a machine. He closed his eyes, just rising and falling unevenly. I can handle it, don't. Shut up, just shut up for once. You left him slumped on the couch and hurried to the kitchen, grabbing a bowl, machine, and a damp cloth. Even as dizziness clouded your own vision, your body still weak from the fever you had been hiding, you forced yourself to stay steady. He returned, gently lifting his head to rest against your lap. His lashes fluttered as he cracked an eye open. Why, and you're still angry with me? I am. I hate you for what you said, but that doesn't mean I can watch you suffer like this. You pressed the cool cloth against his forehead, brushing damp strands of hair away from his face. His breathing eased, the tension in his shoulders slowly loosening under your touch. When you fed him a spoonful of soup, he resisted weakly. You should rest. You look pale, your hand still. For a second, he had noticed. Even in his fever haze, he had seen through you. I'm fine, don't change the subject. Eat. He obeyed then, too drained to argue further. Between spoonfuls, his hand lifted slowly, brushing against your wrist. Even when I failed to give you what you needed, you're still here. Taking care of me, you shouldn't have to. Your throat tightened, tears threatened, but you blinked them back, keeping your voice steady. You're my husband, Jungkook. I'll take care of you, even if you don't realize how much it hurts to love you sometimes. His lips parted as though to respond, but exhaustion claimed him. His hand slipped from your wrist, resting limply against your lap as sleep overtook him. You sat there in silence, stroking his damp hair, your own fever tugging at your body, and though your pride still ached, though your heart still carried the sting of his words, you couldn't bring yourself to leave his side because no matter how could he be so cold, you still loved him. And in his half conscious murmurs, you sensed the truth he loved you too, in his own difficult, stubborn way. After Jungkook drifted into an uneasy sleep on your lap, you sat frozen, afraid to move in case it disturbed him. His weight was heavy against you, his breathing raked every exhale laced with heat. You carefully wrung out the damp cloth in the bowl of cool water beside you and pressed it against his burning forehead. Hours passed, the apartment was silent except for the ticking clock and his shallow breaths. Sleep tugged at your eyes, but you fought it, staying vigilant. Each time his body shifted restlessly, you adjusted the blanket, whispering reassurances he couldn't hear. Then, sometime in the middle of the night, his fever spiked. His skin grew hotter under your touch, beads of sweat glistening at his temple, his lips parted, murmuring in a hoarse, broken voice. Wine, I'm sorry, don't go. Your breath caught, your heart twisting painfully, tears welled in your eyes. Before you could stop them, you stroked his damp hair, pressing your forehead gently against his. Why do you only say it when you are not awake? Why can't you let me hear it when it matters? The tears slipped freely down your cheeks as you clutched his hand, realizing that beneath all his walls, he did feel it was his pride, his stubbornness that silenced him, not the absence of love. By dawn, his fever eased slightly, though his body remained weak. You eased him down on the couch, covering him with the blanket before heading into the kitchen to prepare more soup. The moment you stood, your body reminded you of the truth you had been hiding. Your own fever was still burning your muscles weak. Your vision blurred as you stirred the pot, your hands trembling so violently that you almost dropped the ladle. You grappled the counter for support, your knees threatening to give out. Behind you, a rough voice broke the silence. Wine stop. You turned sharply, startled to see him sitting up on the couch, his hand braced against the armrest. His eyes were narrowed, sharp, even though the haze of his illness. You should be resting. I'll be done in a moment. You are shaking. Don't lie to me. You froze your back still to him. The ladle slipped from your grip, clattering to the pot. It's nothing, don't worry about me. But his voice rose, anger laced with frustration. Nothing, you can barely stand. You have been sick all this time, have not you? You turned then. Your face pale, your body swaying slightly as though the effort of standing was too much. I didn't want you to know you needed someone to take care of you. For once, Jungkook had no reply. He stared at you, his chest tightening as realization sank in while he had called you selfish. Useless, you had been silently enduring your own pain just to care for him. The sight of you trembling before him, still trying to be strong, tore through the walls he had built. You foolish woman, how could you think I would ever want you to suffer for me? He stumbled to his feet despite your protests, moving to steady you before your knees gave way. His hand gripped your arm firmly, his touch burning but steady. For the first time in weeks, his pride slipped away, replaced by raw, unfiltered concern. The fever had eased, leaving Jungkook in a restless slumber. Sometime past midnight, his lashes fluttered, and he woke to the dim glow of the lamp. His throat was dry, his body heavy, but his gaze shifted and softened instantly. There you were, slumped on the armrest of the couch, your head tilted at an awkward angle, lips parted slightly in exhausted sleep. You had not even bothered with the blanket too consumed with watching over him until your body finally gave in. Jungkook's chest tightened. The sight was a quiet dagger of guilt. Carefully, he reached for the blanket that had slipped halfway down and draped it over your shoulders, his fingers lingering for a moment longer than necessary. He swallowed hard, words catching in his throat before they slipped out in a whisper. Words he would never let you hear if he were fully awake. I was wrong, you're not useless. You're the only one I can't afford to lose. His hand trembled as he brushed a stray strand of hair from your face, his lips pressing together in regret. Forgive me, Vine. I should never have said those things. I just don't know how to be the man you deserve. For the first time, the cold professor's mask fell completely, and yet you remained asleep, never hearing the confession that seeped from him in the half light of night. The sun spilled gently through the curtains, warming the quiet room. Jungkook stirred, feeling the fever's weight lessen, though his body remained drained. He pushed himself up with effort, grimacing, only to hear your sharp voice break through. Don't you dare move. You were standing in the doorway with a tray in your hands, porridge, tea, and medicine balanced neatly. Your expression was stubborn, eyes narrowed as though daring him to disobey. For once, Jungkook actually looked caught off guard. I can't just lie here all day, I have work. You're not setting foot in that study until you recover. Professor or not, you're under my care right now. There was authority in your tone that left him momentarily speechless. He lowered his gaze, sighing in reluctant defeat. But then his eyes flickered back to you. Your flushed cheeks, the unnatural brightness in your eyes, the way you swayed ever so slightly while holding the tray. His expression hardened instantly. You were burning up. You froze, then quickly shook your head, setting the tray down. It's just a little tiredness, nothing compared to. Don't lie to me, wine. His voice cracked harsher than intended, but his hands gripped the blanket tightly as if anchoring himself. You were sick and still you carried me, you hid it from me. Your lips pressed together, guilt flickering across your face. You opened your mouth to defend yourself, but he leaned forward despite his weakness, eyes locked on yours. Why would you do that to yourself? Do you hate me that much? That you would rather suffer in silence than let me care for you? The room still, his voice wasn't cold anymore. It was weighed down with regret, protectiveness, and a dawning tenderness that was straight for him. For the first time since your marriage, Jungkook's walls were not just cracking, they were shattering piece by piece. By the third day, Jungkook's fever had begun to ebb. His body still felt heavy, but the sharp edge of weakness had dull, leaving him lucid for the first time in days. He stirred from the couch, the quietness of the apartment tugging at his chest. The first thing he noticed was the faint scent of broth still lingering in the air. The second was the sound of your soft breathing. He turned his head and froze. You were slumped over the dining table, cheek resting against your folded arms. The faint lamplight revealed the sheen of sweat at your temple, the pallor in your skin, the untouched medicine and cold cup of tea beside you. Your frame looked smaller, frailer, yet still you had dragged itself through sleepless nights for him. And he called you selfish. His hand hovered hesitant before finally brushing a strand of hair from your face. Your lashes fluttered faintly, but you didn't wake. He sank to his knees beside the chair so that his face was level with yours. When I was wrong, every word I threw at you that night, it was nothing but my own pride lashing out. His voice cracked as he pressed his forehead to your arm. The court professor stepped bare, reduced to a man terrified of losing the one person who had given him unconditional care. Forgive me, I should never have called you useless, never have accused you of being selfish when all you have done is give. You carried me when I didn't deserve it. You loved me when I gave you nothing back. For the first time, there was no distance, no guarded wall in his tone. Only guilt, regret, and a trembling vulnerability he had never dared to show. I don't know how to be the husband you need, but I can't lose you. Not after this. Please don't turn away from me. He stayed there on his knees, holding your hand lightly as if afraid you might slip away in your sleep. And in that fragile silence, the man who had built his life on coldness finally allowed himself to unravel, choosing for once to beg not as a professor, not as a man of pride, but as a husband. The raw desperation in his tone shattered the last of your walls. Tears slipped down your cheeks as you gave a small, weary smile. I forgave you, Jungkook. Relief crashed over his features, his shoulders sagging as though a burden had been lifted. For once, he didn't hide behind pride or distance. He simply pulled you into his arms, holding you close, almost fearfully, as if you might disappear. And in that fragile embrace, your marriage began to heal, not through perfection, but through the cracks where his cold walls had finally broken, letting the warmth of love seep through.